Borislav, many thanks for introducing me. Sorry for the technical issue. I'm here to speak about the challenges for ATMPs with regard to market access and in particular health technology assessment. If we take the next slide, just to give you a brief overview of the crowded space of ATMP, cell and gene therapies globally. This is really a fast-growing market. Many of the products are obviously the same, but if you just look at the middle column, already 14 products approved in Europe. Some of them have left the market. We can discuss, and I know another presenter will touch upon the challenges of keeping on the market and market failures. The box at the bottom of the slide shows the number of products that are currently under review as end of September this year. So 6 products already under regulatory review by the Committee for Advanced Therapies. If you take the next slide, please. This is also a big business globally, more than 1,000 ATMP companies worldwide from this report from the Alliance for Regulatory Medicines. Alone in Europe and Israel, 238 companies, Asia and so forth. You can see this is really something that is booming both in the US, Europe and Asia. And if we move into the next slide and have a look at the number of clinical trials ongoing with ATMPs. I'm just waiting for the next slide, please. Are you moving my slide, or is there a technical issue here? Yeah, thank you. So if you have a look at this, if you look at the ongoing trials in 2015, that's the upper left part of the slide. Roughly 2/3 were in phase 2 and 3, but over the past 5 years, this has changed to the lower part of the figure. Now 81% of the ongoing trials are actually in phase 2 and phase 3. So there is an expectation of a huge amount of products that potentially can hit the market and hit regulators within the coming years. If we go to the next slide, please. There are some clear challenges for any innovative product, including ATMPs, when it comes to discussing pricing and reimbursement. First of all, there has been a change in the molecular understanding of diseases, which have led to more and more trials being conducted using diagnostic markers, biomarkers. It has led to trials with basket trials focusing not on a particular type of cancer or type of disease, but more diseases that are characterized by having a certain biomarker. So it leads to these agnostic therapies. Many of these products are targeting small or very small population. So we are in the area of orphan diseases. Some of the therapies that we discuss here, the ATMPs and in particular the gene therapies, they have actually the potential to offer a real cure. So some chronic diseases could potentially change from being chronic, requiring treatment, lifelong treatments, into being cured potentially by one single treatment. This is really a game changer, could potentially be a big game changer from a patient perspective, but it's definitely also a challenge from a payer perspective. Things move faster, as already said. Surrogate endpoints, regulators increasingly make use in Europe of what is called accelerated approval processes. Could in particular be a conditional approval, which is a challenge for health technology assessment bodies who would like to have what they feel is a much more solid ground than regulators who may give these products conditional approval, and that condition is that the company provides further comprehensive data down the route. If we take a look at the regulatory challenges for ATMPs on the next slide, please. We already have the initial presentation Next slide, please. The initial presentation from the Bulgarian member of the Committee for Advanced Therapies, many thanks for that. There are many challenges for regulators here. Manufacturing, quality control. We just had a presentation on the designated guideline for ATMPs that is different from the general GMP guideline. These products are challenging in the development that it is difficult to find suitable animal models for the non-clinical studies because these products are human products. And there is always the difficulty in translational science when you have limited non-clinical models. There are issues related to the safety, shedding studies for viral vectors, environmental risk assessment, but also assessment related to gene-modified organism. The regulation on these are national legislation, so there is again this pattern of 27 member states in Europe that has to fit together. The way clinical evidence has been generated, as we already talked about, what are the relevant comparators, the relevant endpoints? And then there is an open question about the long-term risk and also the long-term efficacy. So is the efficacy of this potential curative therapy, is it actually something that will be durable? If we take the next slide, please, and moving to the HTA specific challenges, that comes on top of what I already discussed in terms of the entire setup. As compared to many other medicines and most other medicines, including very advanced classical biologicals, the ATMPs are very often to be administered in a few very highly specialized centers. And the care around these patients when the medicines is being administered in many cases requires new equipment. It may require more intensive care bed units because patients will have to undergo bone marrow transplant and so forth. And in many cases, there is also a requirement due to the stability of the medicinal product that there is a local manufacturing facility, so more or less a bedside facilities. And the cost of establishing this actually adds to the cost of these products. So the product in itself has a price, but there is also a related cost for the healthcare system to establish the therapy because there need to be modifications in the healthcare system. So that leads to my next slide, please, that the biggest challenge for many of these products is actually the size of the price tag that comes along with these products. So the access for ATMPs, even though we already had 14 approved, has been challenging. And if we look at the next slide, even though there are few approvals, even there are 14 approvals, this is on a relatively scale few. So the experience in the HTA milieu, the health technology assessment, the pricing and reimbursement bodies are limited. The reimbursement has been challenging for many of these products, and in a while I will show you just some examples. There has been a need to come up with new ways of setting the price, new pricing models, discount model, risk-sharing agreement, and value-based outcomes. And many healthcare systems, even in the rich part of the world, has been limited due to the high cost. And then, of course, there has been some what we could call commercial failures because uptake has been low. There has also been issues for some manufacturers around the manufacturing capabilities. But let's move to the next slide, and I'll just show you a few examples that has been conducted by the Center for Innovation in Regulatory Sciences. These are 2 cell therapies, 16 therapies, and 2 tissue-based therapies that has been approved in the European Union. And on the right-hand side of the slide, the color coding should be obvious. Red is no reimbursement, no market access, or otherwise patients will have to pay themselves. Green is, of course, positive HTA evaluation. And the yellow ones are those in between that there has been a need to create either patient access scheme or managed entry agreements. So there has been a control on how fast the uptake has been. The 2 first columns are HTAs for Australia and Canada. The rest are 6 different European countries. And as you can see, the uptake has been very diverse. Some products, such as Kymriah and Yescarta, the two first CAR T products, has been accepted in some countries, but not all. And a lot of countries, there is no information, most likely meaning that the product is not already there, even though it has a marketing authorization, but it hasn't been assessed. And patients in those countries do not have access to these therapies at the moment. So it's really a challenge, and the outcome is very, very diverse. So moving to the next slide. As a manufacturer of these products, you need to think about de-risking strategies, not only from a regulatory perspective, but also to meet the expectations of payers and reimbursement bodies. Many of those would like, because many of the trials you do with ATMPs are open label trials, they may be single arm trials, there's no, from a regulatory perspective, no real valid active comparator. But HTA bodies are looking for a comparator, so you need to collect valid historical controls. You need to think about endpoints that may be more relevant for health technology bodies than compared for regulators. And one of the issues that is a big thing for HTA bodies is the uncertainty that comes down the road. If we pay upfront for a curative treatment, are we then sure that we are curing this patient forever? And how much are we going to pay for this? There is an uncertainty that we down the road will need to retreat this patient, or maybe the patient's disease flares up again and we will have to pay for the chronic treatment. So there is a risk linked to the uncertainty of the long-term effect. There is also a need, as discussed, for the diverted cost that is linked to the organizational change and new equipment that you will have to factor in your de-risking strategy and your discussion with health technology assessment bodies. Sorry. In many cases, there is also a need for a patient register. Many times that's for pharmacovigilance reasons, but there may be also a need to collect real-world evidence to satisfy HTA bodies' requirement for long-term effect documentation, and also to satisfy the uncertainty just discussed. And then finally, there is a need to explore and discuss innovative financing models. As already discussed, that could be sometime upfront payment, kind of annuity payment. It could be pay-per-performance and so forth. So payment models that we have not yet really been used to in the European healthcare system. So it's important to think about these de-risking strategies. And secondly, and finally, next slide, please, is to think about doing your product development in an integrated approach, that you not only think about the classical regulatory points about CMC, non-clinical and clinical, but yet you also, when you move from your early exploratory trials into designing your pivotal trial, yet you think about how can I upscale my process. That's already been touched upon. But to my far right on this slide, you also, on top of thinking about what is needed to get your product approved, start thinking about what do we need to generate so we actually also can get our product through the health technology assessment and into patients. So already starting discussion about pricing, reimbursement, and it is actually recommended that you try to get a scientific advice from some of the health technology assessment bodies, or maybe using the European agency's collaboration with the European network of HTA bodies, the UNETA, to obtain a joint scientific advice. So my next and last slide, please, is my conclusion. So ATMPs face many of the same challenges that every new therapy faces, but for ATMPs, these are much more exaggerated. The cost per patient is far higher than we've seen previously. The number of patients are low. There is limited, if any, long-term outcome data available at the time when the product hits the market. There are indirect costs diverted to the or added to the cost of the product, which is linked to the healthcare reorganization. There is a need, and it's very essential that you think about de-risking strategies, that you engage early, not only with regulators, but also HTA bodies, that you generate HTA relevant data, endpoints relevant for assessing the the added benefit of these products, and you think about generating post-authorization data to support real-world evidence. And then you do as much as you can to manage the long-term uncertainties linked to these products. It is also finally important that you think about and propose to HTA bodies new pricing models, especially if you come with new, very disruptive but innovative products that can offer a help to so far untreated patients. So by that, I will conclude my presentation, and thank you for the attention.